This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good morning, children. I'm Dr. Shravani from Department of Radio Diagnosis. Sorry. Today we'll be discussing about intestinal abstraction in systematic approach. What is intestinal abstraction? It's any condition that is interfering with normal propulsion and passage of intestinal contents. So it must be mechanical or functional. According to the site of obstruction, intestinal obstruction is classified into small bowel obstruction, large bowel obstruction, and according to the presentation, it can be acute obstruction, a chronic obstruction, or acute on chronic obstruction, or subacute obstruction. According to the blood flow, simple obstruction and strangulated obstruction will be there. In simple obstruction, the lumen is partially or completely occluded, but the blood flow is preserved. So it can be a complete simple obstruction or an incomplete simple obstruction. In case of strangulated obstruction, the blood flow is compromised, leading to the bowel wall edema, intestinal ischemia, and eventually necrosis to perforation. Here we can see a diagram. This is a simple obstruction, and the below one is the closed loop obstruction or strangulated obstruction. Coming to the open loop obstruction, intestinal flow is blocked distally, but the proximal loops are open and it can be decompressed by vomiting or nasogastric intubation. In closed loop obstruction, both the into flow and the outflow of the closed loop are blocked, resulting in progressive accumulation of the fluid in the closed loop. It can be due to adhesions or internal herniation. In large bowel, it is called as volvulus. What is called volvulus? Small bowel. Coming to the anatomy of the small bowel, it begins from the duodenojejunal flexure and ends at the ileocecal junction. You can see at the diagram. The length of the small bowel is approximately 3 to 10 centimeter, and it begins from proximal to 2/5 of the jejunum and ends at the distal 3/5 of the ileum. The features of the small bowel are valvular conventus, pairs, fractures. Anything wrong? Okay. The features of the small bowel are very important. Hope you guys are listening. They are valvular conventus, pairs, patches, and Meckel's diverticulum. Large bowel. It extends from the ileocecal region to the rectum and it measures approximately 1.5 meter. I'm sorry, the large bowel is not in centimeter, it is in meters. The large bowel is divided into following parts: cecum, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, and the rectum. The features of the large bowel includes the tinea coli, haustra, and epiploic appendages. You can see in the diagram. And now coming to the systematic approach, when a patient presents with abdominal pain, distension, and so on symptoms, first, as a radiologist, we go for erect abdomen, X-ray erect abdomen, that is plain abdominal radiography. We'll see whether it is complete or normal or equivocal or low-grade partial small bowel obstruction, or a complete or high-grade small bowel obstruction. In case of a complete obstruction, we'll decide whether sectional imaging is required or not, or we'll directly go for surgical management. If at all, if it is in a complicated cases, we go for CT, CECT, abdomen. and sonography. And in case of normal or equivocal in cases, we'll go for small bowel follow through or enteroclysis or CT enteroclysis, and then based on those findings, we'll decide the management, whether it is a surgical management or a conservative management. In the CT, we start at the end. We confirm the diagnosis, we characterize the severity of the obstruction, and identify the transition point. That is very important. We have to identify the transition point. And identify the cause of the obstruction and look for any complications. Coming to the radiographic evaluation of intestinal gas, it should include the following. We have to identify the bowel segments containing gas. Assessment of the caliber of these segments is compulsory. Assessment of most distal point of passage of the gas is also compulsory. Evaluation of the bowel contour outlined by the gas. We have to follow these. Now coming to the normal bowel gas patterns, the first collection of gas encountered from the top of the radiograph is usually in the antrum and the body of the stomach. That is what we call a stomach bubble in the plain radiograph. Gas may also be seen in the transverse colon immediately inferior to the stomach. Gas in the ascending and the descending portions of the colon usually occupies the lateral margins of the peritoneal cavity. The sigmoid colon occupies the inferior part of aspect of the abdomen and is often recognized by its characteristic shape and haustral folds. The rectal gas occupies a midline position in the pelvis and generally extends to the level of the pubic symphysis. The gas-filled small bowel tends to occupy the central portion of the abdomen and has a small caliber than the colon. So how do you differentiate whether it is a small bowel gas or a large bowel gas? That is a colon gas. Small bowel is located in the center, and the large bowel, the colon, ascending, transverse, and descending colon are located at the peripheries. So you can easily identify that. This shows the rectal gas, the small bowel gas. This is the stomach bubble. I think you guys can see. This is the gas in the ascending colon. This is the gas in the descending colon. Haustral folds in the colon are normally 2 to 3 mm in width and occur at intervals of 1 centimeter. Circular small bowel folds, they are known as plica semilunaris, and they occur at 1 to 2 mm in width and occurs at intervals of 1 mm. The small bowel is smaller than 3 centimeter in diameter and the colon is smaller than 5 centimeter in diameter. At this point, I would like to tell a 369 rule in case of bowel obstruction. If the diameter of the small bowel is more than 3 centimeters, if the diameter of the large bowel, that is the colon, is 6 centimeter, more than 6 centimeters, or and the diameter of the sigmoid colon, if it is more than 9 centimeters, it is likely intestinal obstruction. Small bowel obstruction. The presence of small bowel distraction with maximal dilated loops averaging 3 centimeters in diameter, exceeding 50% of the caliber of the largest visible colon loop. 2.5 times increase in the number of the distended loops in the abdomen compared with the normal number. The presence of more than 2 air fluid levels in the small bowel. Air fluid levels wider than 2.5 centimeter and air fluid levels differing more than 2 centimeter in height from one another within the same bowel, within the same small bowel loop is considered to be a small bowel obstruction. All these features are, we can see all these features in the X-ray in case of small bowel obstruction. These images, we can see the colon cutoff sign and also the air fluid levels. The picture on the left, I mean, it's radiological left, not normal left. You can see the arrows, those are indicating the air fluid levels. In this picture, We can also see the air fluid levels and dilated bowel loops with air fluid levels. Okay, as small bowel obstruction progresses, gas-filled small bowel loops proximal to the site of the obstruction become more dilated and tend to have a horizontal orientation in the central portion of the abdomen, producing a classic stepladder appearance. In some patients with small bowel obstruction, supine abdominal radiographs may be unrevealing, whereas upright or decubitus abdominal radiographs will show multiple air fluid levels within the small bowel loops proximal to the site of the obstruction. Why you guys are leaving? String of pearls or string of beads sign, small amount of gas trapped. In this picture you can see a small amount of gas trapped between the small bowel loops fold on upright or decubitus abdominal radiograph may be recognized by tiny bubbles of gas lined up along the non-dependent surface of the bowel. Here, coming to the closed loop obstruction. In closed loop obstructions, they usually involve the small bowel and are caused by adhesions, internal herniations, or valvulus. Occasionally, there may be disproportionately dilated gas-filled loop of small bowel that has an appearance of coffee bean. You guys are well versed with the term coffee bean in a radiograph. Vascular compromise may lead to edema and thickening or effacement of the folds within the loop. If an obstructed segment filled with fluid, a rounded soft tissue densely outlined by intra-abdominal fat produces a pseudotumor appearance. This is the pseudotumor appearance. Radiographic signs of small bowel obstruction. The type of the radiograph we take and the specific signs we see in the small bowel obstruction. In a supine or prone radiograph, specific signs of small bowel obstruction include dilated gas or fluid filled small bowel, which measures usually more than 3 centimeters, a dilated stomach, small bowel dilated out of proportion to the colon, a stretch sign, absence of rectal gas, gasless abdomen, pseudotumor sign, pseudotumor sign. All these are seen in the supine radiograph. Coming to the upright or the left decubitus radiograph, we see multiple air fluid levels, longer than 2.5 centimeters, air fluid levels in the same loop of the small bowel of unequal side, and string of bead sign. All these can be seen in an upright or lateral decubitus radiograph. Ultrasound features of the normal bowel. We have to look at this. This is really important in radiologist's point of view. We have to look first if you are viewing the bowel in an ultrasound machine. We have to see whether the gut signature is maintained or not. Gut signature, it usually comprises of 5 alternating bands of higher and lower echogenicity. Serosa appears bright, muscularis propria appears very dark, submucosa appears bright, deep mucosa appears dark, superficial mucosa of the laminal interface appears bright, and the bowel wall thickness should be less than 3 mm. It's 3 mm in if we measure in the ultrasound. As you can see, this is the what I have said before, and the thickness is 2.1 centimeter here. Sonography in obstruction, that is normal. And now we are coming to features that are seen in case of bowel obstruction in ultrasound. GI tract caliber from stomach to the rectum, noting any point at which the caliber alters. We have to measure the content of any dilated loops. We have to see that peristaltic activity within the dilated loops, site of the obstruction, location of gut loops, noting any abnormal position. This is the ultrasound picture showing the dilated bowel loops. Abdominally dilated bowel loops with more carbon than usually we see than the normal. In closed loop obstruction, there is little or no gas present within the obstructed segment, which may be dilated or fluid filled. The picture shows a dilated fluid filled bowel loops. Coming to the intussusception. Intussusception is invagination of a bowel segment, the intussusceptum, into the next distal segment, that is the intussuscipiens. Multiple concentric rings related to the invaginating layers of the telescoped bowel are seen in the cross section. In the picture, we can see one bowel loop is telescoped into the another bowel loop. This is a picture of ultrasound showing intussusception. There are certain signs like claw sign. This is the claw sign. The filling defect seen at the mid-transverse colon representing the intussusceptum with progressive reduction as we go through the study. And pseudokidney sign. Ultrasound finding, there is in the longitudinal ultrasound appearance of the intussuscepted segment of the bowel, which mimics it appears like a kidney. That is what we call pseudokidney sign. Fat containing mesentery which is dragged into the intussusceptum containing vessels is a reminiscent of renal hilum within the renal parenchyma formed by the edematous bowel. Here, this indicates the pseudokidney sign. Enteroclysis. This is a radiology study of the small bowel from jejunum to the ileocecal junction by intubation by intubating the jejunum and the installation of the contrast through the tube. Indication of the enteroclysis is partial small bowel obstruction. There are certain contraindications to the enteroclysis study. Pavitra. Oh, this guy has left. Roll number 13. Contraindications to the enteroclysis are complete colonic obstruction, suspected perforation, massive dilatation. Roll number 13, what are you doing? Complete colonic obstruction. If you suspect any perforation, enteroclysis is an absolute contraindication. If there is massive dilatation of the small bowel and it can lead to perforation if we do the process of the enteroclysis. So in that case also the enteroclysis is contraindicated, and in case of paralytic ileus, enteroclysis is contraindicated. This is the tube that we pass into the small bowel, and then we give the contrast, and this is how we see the bowel loops in case of enteroclysis. And coming to the NDCT findings, the CT criteria for the diagnosis of the small bowel obstruction are we have two criteria. One is the major criteria, and then the other is the minor criteria. Coming to the major criteria, we to tell whether if it is a small bowel obstruction or not, we have to see small bowel loop dilated more than 2.5 centimeter or greater than 2.5 centimeter, and colon not dilated and colon dilated more than colon not dilated. I mean the colon must be within the normal limits, that is less than 6 centimeters. Transition point from dilated to non-dilated small bowel should be seen. And the minor criteria include air fluid levels and colon decompressed. We have to see certain complications of intestinal obstruction. The important complication of the intestinal obstruction is ischemia due to the vascular compromise. We have to find out whether the bowel is ischemic or not in the CT. There are certain things that, to know whether the ischemia is developed or not. We have to see if the bowel wall thickening is more than 3 mm. We have to see whether mesenteric edema is present or not, fluid in mesentery or peritoneal cavity, abnormal bubble wall enhancement, either increased or decreased. If the in a normal live bubble, the bubble wall enhancement will be normal. And if the bubble wall enhancement is absent or decreased, we have to suspect ischemia. And we have to look for occlusion of any mesenteric vessels, engorged mesenteric veins, Whirl sign, closed loop obstruction or valvulus is there or not. You have to look for any pneumotosis, that is air, mesenteric venous gas or portal venous gas. If ischemia is developed, we'll see gas in the mesenteric vessels and portal vein. Is small bowel obstructed? We have to follow certain criteria to see whether it is obstructed or not. CT criteria are the presence of dilated small bowel loops with a diameter more than 2.5 centimeters from outer wall to the outer wall. Proximally to the normal caliber or the collapsed loops distally. Low grade, in case of low grade partial small bowel obstruction, it is considered present when there is significant flow of contrast material through the point of obstruction is seen. In a high grade obstruction, when there is some stasis and delay in the passage of the contrast medium is seen. This is a simple complete small bowel obstruction secondary to the intussusception. Here you can see the intussusception. In this case, CT shows distended small bowel loops with intraluminal positive contrast. Okay. These are the dilated small bowel loops with contrast material proximal to the intussusception with a target appearance. Okay. There is my cursor. This is the target appearance. We can see in the intussusception. Completely collapsed bowel loops without intraluminal contrast material are seen beyond the intussusception. Here. Okay. Here. There is no contrast material in these bowel loops. As we can see, this contrast material is present here. Proximal to the obstruction, distal to the obstruction, there is no contrast material. We have to see how severe is the obstruction. It can be determined by the degree of distal collapse, proximal bowel dilatation, and presence of small bowel feces sign. This is something related to radiology. In case of high-grade obstruction, 50% difference in the caliber between the proximal dilated bowel and distal collapsed bowel is seen. Small bowel feces sign is present when intraluminal particulate material is identified in the distal small bowel. It indicates moderate to high-grade obstruction. Passage of the oral contrast material through the transition point into the collapsed bowel, distal bowel indicates an incomplete bowel obstruction. This image indicates small bowel feces sign in a patient with high-grade small bowel obstruction secondary to the post-operative adhesions. This is a case of post-operative adhesions leading to intestinal small bowel obstruction. This is the axial CT, shows gas bubbles mixed with particulate matter. Okay. The black ones are the air bubbles that mix with the particulate matters, finding that represents small bowel feces sign. Now the collapsed bowel loops distal to the point of the obstruction. Where is it? Okay. Yeah. This is the collapsed thing and this is the dilated thing. We have to find out where the transition point is. It is determined by identifying the caliber change between the dilated proximal and the collapsed distal small bowel. Approach to detect transition point should begin in a retrograde fashion by starting at the rectum and proceeding proximally towards the cecum, ileum, jejunum, like that. If the transition point is located proximally, that is jejunum or duodenum, the position should be confirmed by using an anterograde approach starting from the stomach. Actually, if you want to detect a transition point, what we do is we start from the rectum. We start to see the caliber of the bowel from the rectum, and then we move proximally. You can see this here. The transition point in small bowel obstruction, the same case as uh, the previous case. This is the axial CT showing the dilated. Oh, where is my cursor? Okay. Dilated small bowel loops. There is an abrupt change in the caliber here between the proximal dilated bowel loops and collapsed distal bowel loops. The change in caliber was due to the adhesions. Okay, now we have to find the cause of the obstruction. And here we follow the rule of thumb. The cause of obstruction is almost always in the transition point. Most intrinsic bowel lesions are seen at the transition point and manifest as localized mural thickening. Most extrinsic causes are seen adjacent to the transition point and usually have associated extraintestinal manifestations. So most intraluminal causes manifest as endoluminal foreign objects with imaging characteristics different from those of the remaining enteric content. What are the causes of the small bowel obstruction? They are classified into three main causes. One is intrinsic, extrinsic, and the intraluminal cause. The intrinsic causes include inflammatory disease such as Crohn's, tuberculosis, eosinophilic gastroenteritis, neoplasias, vascular lesions. This slide is important. You can take a picture or you can note it down. This is also important for surgery point of view. Vascular lesions, hematoma, intussusception. The extrinsic causes include adhesions, hernias, endometriosis, hematomas. And the intraluminal causes are basins, gallstones, and foreign bodies. Okay. This is a case of small bowel obstruction secondary to acute presentation of the Crohn's disease. These are the CT axials showing dilated small bowel loop with a diameter more than 2.5 centimeters proximally to the thickened terminal ileum. Okay. Okay. This is the terminal ileum. It is thickened. You can see it. And the circle, this is the transition point. We can see the dilated bowel loops proximal to the obstruction, and this is the transition point. We can see distally the bowel loop is not dilated, but it is just thickened. The thickening is due to the Crohn's disease, not due to the obstruction. Coming to the inguinal hernias, the hernias can also lead to the obstruction. Small bowel this is a case showing small bowel obstruction secondary to an inguinal hernia. These are the CT axials show small bowel dilatation. The small bowel dilatation due to the incarcerated inguinal hernia. The transition point here, this is the transition point, is lateral to the inferior epigastric arteries. Here, this is inferior. This is epigastric vessels. This is the transition point. Okay. This is a case of intussusception. Here we can see the target sign. And these are the dilated bowel loops. Now coming to the closed loop small bowel obstruction secondary to the postoperative adhesions. The first image shows radial distribution of the small bowel loops with a U-shaped configuration. And a stretched mesenteric vessels converging towards the site of the torsion. And in the picture B, this is the coronal CT. It shows incarcerated small bowel with a C-shaped configuration. These two are the cases of closed loop small bowel obstruction. Now coming to the large bowel obstruction, Abdominal emergency with high morbidity and mortality rate is large bowel obstruction. The causes of the large bowel obstruction include neoplasia, volvulus, diverticulitis. Uncommon causes include intussusception, hernia, inflammatory bowel disease, extrinsic compression, fecal impaction, and foreign body. The signs and symptoms of large bowel obstruction are often insidious in contrast to the abrupt onset of symptoms seen in the most small bowel obstruction. Large bowel obstruction caused by the in the left colon manifests earlier than the obstruction in the right colon. Competence of the IC valve, that is the ileocecal valve, influences the response of the colon. If the ileocecal valve is competent, the large valve will result in a closed loop obstruction which cannot decompress into the small bowel. If the intraluminal pressure need to stretch the wall of the hollow tube, it is inversely proportional to the radius of the tube. The cecum is the largest diameter of the colon. It requires the least amount of pressure to distend. The exact size of the cecum at risk for perforation ranges from 9 to 12 centimeters. A radiographic features that indicates the normal large bowel. The examination, in case of large bowel obstruction, the examination should include supine non-dependent radiographs to aid in the diagnosis of the large bowel obstruction and to determine any pneumoperitoneum. Pneumoperitoneum is seen in case of perforation of the bowel. Air fluid levels are often seen in dilated colon on upright or decubitous radiographs. The presence of air fluid levels suggests that the cause of the obstruction is more acute since the colonic fluid has not been present long enough to be absorbed. Now, the complications of the large bowel obstruction are pneumotosis, portal venous gas, and pneumoperitoneum. Portal venous, if the ischemia develops, we can see portal venous gas and pneumotosis, and pneumoperitoneum is seen if perforation is developed. Okay, in the first image, it is showing supine radiograph with large bowel obstruction. It shows dilated ascending transverse and descending colons. This is the transverse colon. This is the descending colon. In this picture, we cannot see the ascending colon. And transition point is noted in the region of the splenic flexion. In this case, it is obstructing colonic cancer. And in the second image, it's a case of a 51-year-old woman with chronic abdominal pain and cecal ileus. It shows distended and medially displaced cecum. Here, the cecum is displaced medially. Gas is present throughout the entire colon, the ascending colon, transverse colon, and the descending colon. And it doesn't have any, actually in the CT, it has no colonic obstruction. Coming to the volvulus, any segment of intestine that has mesenteric attachment has the potential to undergo a volvulus. If the twist is greater than 360 degrees, it is unlikely to resolve spontaneously. Air and intestinal contents may enter the twisted segment of the bowel, producing abdominal distension and pain. The risk of the vascular compromise in the twisted segment is more important than the mechanical effects of the volvulus. Severe vascular compromise may result in necrosis and perforation of bowel, causing sepsis and death. Coming to the sigmoid volvulus. Sigmoid volvulus it is massively dilated loop of sigmoid colon that has an inverted U configuration or absent haustral folds, extends superiorly above the transverse colon into the left upper quadrant beneath the left hemidiaphragm, even elevating the diaphragm with air fluid levels in both the ascending and the descending limbs of the loop. The dilated bowel can be in the midline or even extend into the right upper quadrant. The opposed inner walls of the sigmoid colon may occasionally form a dense white line that points towards the pelvis, and the absence of the rectal gas is an important distinguishing feature. This is the coffee bean. Actually, this slide, you can take a picture of it. If you write it in the surgery paper, they will give you good marks, because this slide, it explains this. Actually, in case of Wallace, you can write a coffee bean appearance is seen in lateral radiograph. See, I'm sorry, in radiograph. That won't be a correct explanation. We have to write why this loop is like this, why this is turned like this, what is this bright line representing. All this can be explained in this slide. You can take a picture if you want. Cecal volvulus. It is caused by a rotational twist of the right colon on its long axis associated with mobility of the ascending colon. So the cecum flips into the mid-abdomen or left upper quadrant. Cecal volvulus can occur only when the right colon is completely fused to the posterior parietal peritoneum. Dilated gas-filled cecum containing a single air fluid level in an ectopic location, usually with the cecal apex in the left upper quadrant. Medially placed ileocecal wall may produce a soft tissue indentation, so the gas-filled cecum has the appearance of the coffee bean or the kidney. Diagnosis can be confirmed by the contrast enema or the abdominal CT. In the case of volvulus of the mid ascending colon. Coming to the transverse colon volvulus, as with the sigmoid volvulus, elongation of the transverse mesocolon and close approximation to the hepatic and the splenic flexion may allow the transverse colon to twist on its mesenteric axis. Okay. At this point, I would like to tell you once again that anything that has mesenteric connection can undergo volvulus, can rotate on failure of normal fixation of the mesentery. I'm sorry. May lead to increased mobility of the ascending colon and hepatic flexion. Abdominal radiographs are usually not helpful for patients with volvulus or transverse mesocolon, may erroneously suggest the sigmoid volvulus. A barium edema, it will confirm the diagnosis if shows typical beaking and obstruction at the level of the transverse colon. Splenic flexure volvulus. Abdominal radiographs may reveal the dilated featureless air fluid loop of bowel in the left upper quadrant and is separate from the stomach with air fluid levels in the transverse colon and the cecum. When the splenic flexure volvulus is suspected, a single contrast barium enema may be performed for a more definitive diagnosis. And coming to the pneumoperitoneum, that is air under the diaphragm. You can see the diaphragm contour, and the black one is the air. Here. Gas enters the retroperitoneal spaces can usually be distinguished from the intraperitoneal gas. Perforation of the retroperitoneal portions of the intestine, such as duodenum, ascending and descending colon, and rectum. In patients with sigmoid diverticulitis, gas can extend laterally along with the left margin of the psoas muscles if the perforation involves the root of the sigmoid mesocolon along with both the margins of the psoas muscle. Coming to the portal venous gas, it is manifest as thin branching tubular areas. In this picture, I hope you can delineate this, you can appreciate this. These black lines, the dark lines indicates the portal venous gas collection. The peripheral location of the gas reflects the hepatopetal flow of the blood in the portal venous system away from the porta hepatis. A left lateral decubitus radiograph of the abdomen may facilitate visualization of the portal venous gas. This is the best viewing for the portal venous gas. Unless the gas has been introduced hydrogenically by the vascular catheterization, endoscopic manipulation, or hydrogenic causes, the source of the gas is almost invariably the intestine. Intraluminal intestinal layer can breach a damaged mucosa, enter the bloodstream, and eventually reach the portal venous system of the liver. The most important cause of the portal venous gas is infarction and ischemia. Pneumatosis intestinalis. It is characterized by the two radiographic patterns: a bubbly appearance of thin linear streaks of gas in combination with the portal venous gas, linear gas collections in the intestinal wall, and are almost a signs of the bowel infarction in an adult patient. Other findings of bowel ischemia or infarction include dilatation of the bowel, nodular thickening or a thumbprinting of the bowel wall. Um, Here you can see these are the arrows showing several dilated bowel loops in a patient with bowel infection with linear gas collections, indicating the bowel is infarcted. Bowel infarction. Pneumosis is particularly well seen by CT, but not always indicate infarction of the bowel unless the pneumosis is associated with portomesenteric venous gas. This is the thumbprinting sign of the large bowel wall thickening, usually caused by edema related to an infective or inflammatory process. The arrows indicates thumbprinting sign. The normal hosta become thickened at regular intervals, appearing like thumbprints. Contrast enema. Major advantage of the contrast enema is it allows easy detection between the large bowel obstruction and the colon pseudo obstruction. It may also be used to confirm the colonic volvulus. The goal is to fill the colon adequately enough to detect obstruction or demonstrate dilated colon without a transition point. Study should be performed under low pressure without inflation of the balloon. Coming to the MDCT, it is an imaging modality of choice. It is well tolerated and rapidly. It can be used to diagnose the intraluminal, mural, and the extraluminal causes of the obstruction. Diagnosis of large bowel obstruction is based on dilated large bowel proximal to the transition point and decompressed small bowel distal to the obstruction. In these images, we can see the large bowel obstruction dilated. Thank you. Guys can wait. I think they will take attendance.